Ukraine's deployment of sea drones marks the beginning of a new era in naval warfare. The deployment of such USV is nothing new in naval tactics, as boats with explosives that target other vessels and above-water structures have been in use for centuries, often by irregular forces and terrorist groups. However, their deployment by a state as an asymmetric measure against a much more powerful fleet of another state is a new turn in warfare. Not to mention that the drones Ukraine has developed are highly sophisticated, capable of traversing huge distances, usually undetectable by radar and remotely controllable, unlike the boats with explosives. Apart from that, Ukraine claims that each boat costs a mere $250,000. A single anti-ship missile, by comparison, can cost millions. The boat's cargo bay can carry 200 kg of high explosive to a ship's waterline where, unlike a hole punched higher up in a hull by a missile or aerial drone, it will cause the vessel hit to ship water and possibly sink. Boat was developed by modifying a commercially available jet ski. It is surrounded by an aluminium hull with, most likely, Russian-designed fuses at the front to prime a warhead just behind. A remotely controlled camera, plus infrared lens, sits on a pedestal and brings back a video feed to Ukraine's command and control center. Ukrainian experts have said they were particularly impressed by the fact that the country's navy was able to coordinate the drones more than 100 miles from its coast using the weighted numbers, in both sea and air, to get to the area outside the harbor and possibly even within it. But this has to be set against the fact that the damage done in the raid is unclear for all the excitement it has generated. The USV fleet will defend the Ukrainian waters, stop Russian ships carrying missiles from leaving the bay, protect merchant ships, and perform secret missions. These drones can participate in long-range maritime reconnaissance and coastal surveillance, escorting and supporting the traditional fleet, convoying merchant ships, zooming in artillery fire, defending Ukraine's bases, and countering amphibious operations. Ukraine is not the only state that develops such USV. However, the US, British, Chinese, and Israeli analogs seem to be bigger, covered in armor, and equipped with missiles and machine guns. Ukraine's drones, because of their cheapness and effectiveness, would not be out of reach for a small military power or a reasonably competent non-state group. The problem here is that the conventional naval forces and merchant fleets are not prepared to counter attacks of such drones. There exist no proven countermeasures to render enemy USV unoperational after they have been deployed. Therefore, Ukraine's efficient attacks on Russian battleships not only can change the tides in the warfare in the Black Sea, but show rebellious forces all across the world how they can beat conventional fleets with rather simple technologies. The 18-foot radio-controlled boats apparently have been prowling the Black Sea for months. According to the Ukrainians, and backed up by video footage apparently shot from cameras on board one of the drones, they scored direct hits on Admiral Makarov, the fleet's flagship, and two other vessels, damaging all three. That was followed on November 18th by a big explosion at a Russian oil terminal in Novorossiysk, also reported to have been the work of the same type of naval drones. For many of these attacks marks the start of a new age in naval warfare. That could be bad news not only for Russia, but for anyone who does business, naval or civilian, at sea. For its part, Ukraine announced on November 11th that it plans to build 100 of the vessels, paid for, it hopes, by crowdfunding. Until Ukraine's attack on the Black Sea fleet, strapping bombs to remote-controlled boats had mostly been the preserve of irregular forces. Iran did test some in 2017 against a Saudi Arabian tanker. But things really got going when the Houthi movement, a group of rebels against Yemen's Saudi-supported government, began with apparent Iranian support to use uncrewed speedboats stuffed with explosives. Partisans' drones are also going underwater. In 2021, Israel's Navy destroyed what it described as a bomb-carrying submersible drone minutes after its launch into the Mediterranean by members of Hamas. According to Israel, Hamas has been honing the technology for years. Each vessel, it claims, can carry about 30 kg of explosive. Efforts by governments to weaponize uncrewed boats have generally taken a different tack. Rather than packing vessels with bombs and ramming them into their targets, the world's navies seem more interested in mounting guns and missiles on us and using them like any other warship, only without sailors on board. As far back as 2012, for example, America's Navy was experimenting with a rigid-hull inflatable boat equipped with missiles and a remotely operated machine gun. In coming years, it plans to spend billions of dollars developing a colorful array of us, some of which may be as long as a superyacht and capable of carrying long-range missiles and other weapons. All these projects, though at least all that are known of, have a slightly unimaginative feel to them. They are to the world of naval warfare what machines like the Predator and Reaper drones made by General Atomics are to aerial combat, namely redesigned, uncrewed versions of the existing way of doing things. What Ukraine seems to have demonstrated is the naval equivalent of the quadcopter. and that may make naval warfare asymmetric in a way which governments are unprepared to deal with. According to an analysis by Mr. Sutton of available images, its engine appears to be from a Sea-Doo jet ski. Its bow-mounted camera looks like a device that cyclists might strap to their helmets. It has a larger one pictured mounted amidships. And its satellite receiver bears a strong resemblance to the Starlink terminals supplied by SpaceX. Uncrewed surface vessels thus seem poised to follow the trajectory of airborne commercial drones, which caught governments flat-footed when they went from hobby shop curiosity to deadly security threats seemingly overnight. Not having a crew gives us those other advantages. With no need for a cabin, they can be built for stealth. The Ukrainian boat rises only a few centimeters above the water's surface, making it almost invisible to radar and cameras, but unlike a submarine drone, still able to keep in radio contact with its controllers. Radio waves cannot penetrate water. This does not mean a follow-up could not die completely underwater, for example, in order to evade detection on a final attack run like a German U-boat. The Hamas subs, which are guided on the surface by GPS, might already operate on a similar principle. Skipping the crew also means vessels can be used more brazenly. A group planning a kamikaze-style maritime attack can avoid relying on a human, who may lose their nerve at the last second. In the footage from the attack on Sevastopol, the drone charges through a hail of gunfire with gay abandon. How then do you stop us? The immediate response has been to rejig existing weapons. A couple of years ago, Thales, a French armaments firm, thus reconfigured its supersonic Martlet missile to hit small, fast-moving surface vessels. The result will be fitted to British frigates in 2024. America's Navy also recently put the finishing touches to what it calls a surface warfare mission package, consisting of two 30mm guns, two rigid-hull inflatable boats, and a helicopter. This, it says, is specifically geared toward picking off small, fast-moving boats, both crewed and uncrewed. Moving beyond such lash-ups, both America and Britain have toyed with lasers which they claim could do the job. But it is unclear whether that technology is ready. The American test aboard the US Portland in the Gulf of Aden was against a stationary target. Those British tests so far disclosed have taken place on land. A popular technique for bringing down aerial drones is to jam their radio links with high-intensity electromagnetic chatter, or to wrest control of the craft itself through a technique known as spoofing. This might work for us, too, though countermeasures in the form of encrypted links and increased autonomy are becoming increasingly effective. As is often the case when a new threat emerges from the technological shadows, armed forces will also look for answers in unusual places. First World War-style indicator nets for ensnaring submersible and semi-submersible craft could see a return to service. And Mr. Sabatz points to an American program inspired by the defensive secretions of hagfish to develop a slime that could be used to gunk up the propellers of incoming USVs. But no amount of firepower nor tide of gloop is likely to be a satisfactory response on its own by the time you're getting into the range of a point defense system. Also, these measures assume drone boats will come as single spies. More likely, they will arrive as battalions. Truthfully, it's pretty hard to stop one hostile incoming target, and every additional target you add to that makes the problem much more complicated.